top focus continues to be the Kolkata rape and murder case. The Supreme Court has constituted a national task force to look into the modalities that now need to be adhered to ensure the safety of medical professionals across our nation. A bench headed by Chief Justice of India D.Y. Chandrachud heard a suo motu case related to the rape and murder of a postgraduate medic at the R.G. Kar Medical College and Hospital in Kolkata amid the ongoing nationwide doctor strike. The bench has expressed serious reservations over the delay in registration of an FIR. The Supreme Court also directed the Central Bureau of Investigation to file a status report on the progress of the investigation in the case by the 22nd of August. The Apex Court has said that the objective of the task force, however, is to make recommendations in regards to some of the measures that now need to be implemented and followed across India for ensuring the safety of doctors at the workplace. The NTF has been asked to submit an interim report within 3 weeks and a final report within 2 months of it beginning its inspection. The Apex Court has asked the NTF to formulate an action plan under 2 subcategories. Number 1 is prevention of violence, including gender-based violence against medical professionals, and the second is providing an enforceable national protocol for dignified and safe working conditions for interns, residents, senior residents, doctors, nurses, and other medical professionals. I'm being joined by now several doctors on the broadcast, viewers, to give us their perspective on what they feel is actually doable in this situation. Let me begin this conversation with Dr. P.S.V. Rao. Dr. Rao, very difficult times that we're facing at this juncture today, where a tragedy, a truly horrific tragedy, has struck a young girl in India. Doctors now are out on the streets and they are demanding that there be better facilities and better protection. As a senior surgeon yourself, sir, and someone who's been in the medical profession for a very long time, what are your suggestions and what are your thoughts? If you were to make some recommendations to the National Task Force, what would those be?
Good evening, Devika, and all the panelists and viewers. Lot of what I feel is doable, I have already put in my article which appeared in the Sunday Guardian on this Sunday. See, first of all, we want as doctors prevention. The prevention is that there shouldn't be such crimes, there shouldn't be such assaults on doctors and on women. For that, foremost, it is the institutions which have to provide the protection. Any institutions, medical institutions, non-medical institutions, to all those who work there and who come into the institution. And even more important, when you have women working and that too on night shifts, we can't have this situation, and women form half the population. For all those who are very patriarchal and think that women's life doesn't matter and women's safety doesn't matter, let them remember they form more than half the population in many parts of the world, and they are half the population here. You can't ignore them. You can't take these things casually. Their protection is most important. And all doctors who are serving, and remember, we are not on a 9-to-5 job. We are highly vulnerable when we are there at night, because the security staff, the security provided is often very weak beyond working hours. Even during working hours itself, it is weak. And how many doctors get beaten up, especially like I have written in my article, in the emergency department, in the ICU department, in various other places in the hospital,
yes,
where such patients are taken up. Now, what can be done? First of all, I have listed a whole lot of measures that each institution can take to protect. And it's a long list. If you want, if you give me time, I can read it out. Other than that, the law and order situation, you can't have any kind of investigation if there is absolutely no law and order, and the Supreme Court can't enforce that. It is the bureaucracy, it is the political leadership which has to do it. But they are actually, instead of investigating the matter in Calcutta, busy trying to suppress and destroy all evidence. That is the whole tragedy. Why should doctors be on the roads? We have to be serving the people, but we are forced to come on the roads because our own life is at risk. Instead of saving lives, we are busy trying to save our own lives and our own limbs. And
Yes.
this situation has been going bad from year to year. It wasn't when I joined the medical profession. It is a very different ball game now. It's terrible now. And social media is often used to arouse anger against us. And remember, this is a profession which runs on trust, especially for us surgeons. People are risky. See, when they come for a surgery, they're actually putting their lives in our hands.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, once the trust is gone, and everyone is suspecting us, how can we perform? We can't perform.
Dr. Rao, I just want to understand from you. You're talking about there being a degradation now of the trust that there used to be between patients and doctors. What really, as per you, has then gone wrong? And like I said, what is it that can be done? Because to say that there must be then police forces stationed at hospitals all the time, that really does paint a very gloomy picture for where India is headed. If that's what's going to be required at our hospitals for patients to maintain some decorum and to not attack medical professionals. But at the same time, when we're talking about the safety of the staff at night, be it a trainee doctor or anybody else in a vulnerable situation, there are so many complaints, Dr. Rao, that continue to pour in about there just not being any basic facility for staff to go lie down at. How is it that such massive hospitals are running without providing the basic equipment? And why is it that senior doctors or people who are in a position to make certain demands are perhaps not making those demands?
You see, there was a time when I would take theatre clothes to the hospital. My own, even the theatre clothes were not available. This and various basic requirements we were taking to the hospital. Now, the problem is we doctors get taken for granted, and we have been taken granted for too long. It may be our pay structure, it is our work schedules. For 6 years, 3 years in CMC Vellore and 3 years in AIMS New Delhi, I have been on continuous alternate everyday duty plus alternate night duty. You tell me what is which European or American institution will allow this. 36 hours, and then you get a night off, then again 36 hours, then a night off, and this goes on for the whole time. And if your colleague who is alternating with you goes on leave, then till that person comes, you are on continuously. And it is a very strenuous job. And if you expect us not to even be able to have a proper meal or to sleep when we get a chance, and not even a proper toilet, then it is a sad state of affairs. And the only reason is we doctors are hesitant to go on strike because it looks very bad on us. Second, when we do go on strike, this is what goes on. You see the protesters are beaten up. The basic demands are not met. It is horrible. It is a very sad state of affairs.
Okay.
And this is the reason why a lot of doctors, the moment they get an opportunity to leave this nation and go, they go up. And corporate hospitals came up much later on. When I joined surgery, there were no corporate hospitals. We were totally dependent on either government hospitals or a few private hospitals like the CMC Vellore. So these are things that need to be looked into. Even a simple thing like theatre ventilation. The ventilation was pure recirculation of air. End result is there were we used to feel very drowsy working in theatre because all the anesthetic gases were just recirculating there. And the same thing in the infection ward, the microbes, because there was no filter in the ventilation, the microbes would be recirculated. These are all going on. These are all things I have highlighted. Fire. There is no proper fire safety. There was a big hospital here in Bangalore. From the beginning, I was fighting with them, saying that you please put a staircase on the which is outside the building, so that in case of a fire we can escape. Luckily, till for a few years it took before the fire department came heavily down on the hospital. Then the staircase was put. Otherwise, if there had been a fire, we would have had to jump from whichever floor we are in outside, because the lift gets filled with smoke. You can't escape through the lift. Then we have these all kinds of toxins, all kinds, and less said about things like radiation hazard, use of various other toxic chemicals, and them accumulating because the ventilation is not adequate. All these affect our health. There was a whole lot of anesthesiologists who landed up with abortion because the anesthetic gases were accumulating and they were exposed to it the whole day. There are, and in my article, I put out the statistics. Even in US, they have shown, the statistics show that the hospital is the most dangerous place to work, more dangerous than a construction industry or any kind of machinery industry.
Okay. Okay.
This is the case in the West, you can imagine here.
Okay.
So
Dr. Rao,
we need various safety issues to be sorted out, not only the attacks from the people.
Okay, Dr. Rao, I'm going to bring you back. I want to bring in Dr. Swati Maheshwari as well into the conversation. Dr. Maheshwari, I want to open the floor to you as well, ma'am, to understand what is it that would be your recommendations if the NTF were to ask for your suggestions on what really needs to be done. If you can firstly explain to our viewers what are some of the problems that are faced by doctors, and then what can truly be done to address those.
Absolutely. First of all, it is very reassuring today that the highest judiciary of the country, Supreme Court, has taken cognizance of the gravity of the situation, and not just hearing, the plea of the victim's family, but also looking at the safety of the doctors at large. So we wish, hope and pray that this whole ordeal will start fructifying. But yes, coming back to the problems like Dr. Rao has already spelled them out, we do need to understand that the basic human needs that are there for any person who's working in an institution for 48 to 72 hours at a continuous stretch have to be met. And those are the things which are lacking completely in these hospitals. See, most of these hospitals are either P&L oriented or, they are least bothered about the fact that the working staff, is adequately equipped, is adequately given comfort to deliver what they are supposed to deliver. And that's why probably these things are lacking right now completely in most of the government hospitals and the other hospitals which are at the helm. So this is a very, very important issue that has to be looked after. And I think it is time that some concrete steps should be taken, be it looking after the overcrowding that happens in these hospitals, be it the understaffing that is there, which is the root cause for most of these assaults that happen and the grudge that the patients they have. Thirdly, also, looking at the security personnel deployment, because if you look at, like the IMA demanded, if you look at airports and if you look at the other institutions, they have adequate security personnel, and not that each and everyone can just enter the premises according to their whims and fancies. So it has to be a regulated entry in the hospitals. Who is entering the hospital? Why is he entering the hospital? All this has to be looked after. CCTV definitely has to be installed in these hospitals. And also some kind of regulatory body is required as to how many hours these doctors are putting in while they're doing duties, because they're 72 hours of duties, which is really inhuman. So that also has to be looked after, because a lot of times, the doctors, they're too tired while they are doing their duties, and they go off guard, when you are for such a long time. And also that can also, create problems for them. So that is also something that needs to be looked after. And I think a greater framework is required for women's safety at large for the entire country. We should not leave that behind also. I think the Supreme Court should kind of look at that also, and not just restrict themselves to the doctor's safety or female safety in the hospitals. I think they should look at female safety at large, because even if you look at last few days, there have been cases from 2-year-old girl to 78-year-old woman. Nobody is spared right now. And it's becoming a very, very important issue. We are not Afghanistan or Pakistan where, we stay as a mute spectators to all these atrocities that are happening to the women. We need to rise up to the situation. We need to see what measures legally can be taken so that such kind of events and incidents, they don't happen. There has to be some fear inculcation in all these people who think that they can go away with such kind of acts. So something very concrete is right now required. Definitely, yes, it's very reassuring to see that now, the Supreme Court has taken cognizance, and probably, the hospitals would be a safer place to work.
Okay, I'll bring you back in just a moment, ma'am. Dr. Sugandha Gupta also with us on the broadcast. Dr. Gupta, I want to understand from you as well, what would be your suggestions?
Hello to all. Most of the points have already been covered by my respected colleagues and seniors. The most important thing here to understand is that we've been going round and round in cycles. Medical profession is a noble profession, and at the same time, it is also the most demanding and most vulnerable. The most vulnerable task force remains the resident doctors, the postgraduate students and interns who work under deplorable and extremely challenging work conditions. Issues are raised, issues are brought forth. After a point of time, they get busy with their duties and demands of the profession, and things are forgotten. Violence with doctors is nothing new. This is not the first time that doctors are out on the streets raising their voice. But very little is done, wherein assurances and promises made are very, very large and high and big and mighty. But on the face of it, nothing comes to to a conclusion. There are no changes that are made. The recent incident is again, it's like the nail in the coffin that now we cannot take this anymore. Until and unless each and every doctor feels safe in his own workspace, we will not be able to give our best treatment, our best behavior, our best knowledge and skills to the patients who come in front of us. What the doctors demand are basic safety needs, which every human being needs. Every human being, whether it's a laborer, it's a doctor, it's a lawyer, it's a judge, it is anybody. That is all that we ask for. Plans have been put into place, demands have been laid down and written, certain changes do come across, but they last very little. Whether it's a male doctor or a female doctor, abuse is very common. Like Dr. Rao was saying, it is the emergency departments, the ICU departments, wherein the tempers are very high, wherein the workload is very high, wherein these kinds of violent episodes are very, very frequent. So there was also recently, some social media groups have been circulating that women doctors should not be put on night duties. That is not the solution to it. Women doctors are the major chunk. There are so many females who would go without treatment if they had no access to a female doctor. Women doctors work equally hard, if not more, to reach stages in their career, in their lives, to be able to help and serve the needy patients. So stopping them from going out on night duties is not the solution. If corporate sectors can make changes and ensure safety of their female workforce by providing them adequate cabs, ensuring duty hours to be balanced and so on, so can the medical profession. But rules will have to be laid down stringently. There have been points that have been submitted, and we are hoping and looking forwards to some straight and significant resolutions this time. We doctors do not want to be out on the streets. We want resolution to this. We want safety for each and every female and male doctor at any stage in this career. That can only happen with strict legislation and the understanding that doctors are also human. We need everything that a basic human being needs. And if we are provided with that, we can do much more for the society. Okay. That is all that I would like to say for now.
Okay. At the same time, Dr. Swati Maheshwari, do you feel that now that there is some sort of scrutiny on how hospitals are also functioning and the role that the overall management is also playing as far as the physical and mental health of doctors is concerned, do you feel that we need to take a moment to also now revise and perhaps bring into place some measures that can be put together that have to be 100% followed by all hospitals to also ensure like I said, the physical and mental health of doctors, because we also hear so many times of complaints of how there is complete lack of management from within. It has nothing to do with patients or their relatives becoming violent, or it has nothing to do with what has taken place in Kolkata. But at the end of the day, sometimes we hear young doctors talk about how they made to work extensive hours without any regular breaks, and how it has such a brutal impact on their overall mental health.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree with what you're saying, that the entire functioning of the hospital has to be relooked at, because, see, even if you take the case of this RG Kar Medical Hospital, the principal himself, has a very kind of background that he has. There are a lot of allegations that were made onto him earlier also, but nobody kind of looked into that. They were all overlooked. And again, he was reinstated as a principal in RG Kar Hospital, and from here right into the other hospital also. So the senior authorities need to look at it as to who are the principals, who are the people who are leading the hospital, what kind of background do they have, do they ever do check that, and if some kind of fallacies are there or people have not behaved, or there's a list of misconduct, then that should be also looked after and seen, and it should be taken care of, instead of reinstating them and kind of putting them in such big positions again and again, and giving them trust that you can go on with what you are doing. That is also one thing that should be looked after. Secondly, yes, there's a huge problem of resource, there's a problem of staffing that is there in the hospitals, and that should also be looked after, because ultimately the entire load comes onto the doctor. A lot of times we have seen that the nursing staff is short, or the other housekeeping staff is short, and all that has to be borne by the doctor himself or herself, because patient care becomes utmost important, and the doctor cannot say that the nurse was not there or the other services were not there. So he is totally accountable, and therefore they kind of do other people's work also. So I think this should also be looked after. Secondly, overcrowding in the hospitals. There has to be a system to see that how, people, they are not aggregating at one place and they are not feeling that they are getting neglected and nobody is catering to them, because that is what happens is most of the government hospitals, that people feel that they have been sitting there since morning and nobody is tendering to them. And therefore, all this has to be looked after, because these are the root causes where all these kind of assaults and aggressive and violent behaviors stem up from. Even if you look at a study, it says, 75% of doctors in India have faced some kind of violent aggression or assault in their career. So it is not it's a huge number actually, it's not less. And therefore, something has to be done very concrete. Definitely, the health departments of the state and the center have to look at it and see what all more changes can be done to make the life of a doctor much more comfortable, because they are in a very stressful situation. Otherwise, you have these patients right in front of you who are fighting life and death, and their toll also comes on a doctor. And if their working conditions are then not comfortable as well, then you can very well understand what kind of mental trauma they go through. Therefore, definitely mental health counseling is also required. We need to give them some kind of support in that form also. And secondly, the entire functioning of the hospitals have to change. That is a must, and it should be, kind of a prerogative of the health ministry to see as to how and what changes can be brought about so that hospital is a more congenial environment to work in, rather than being scared all the time and subjecting these doctors to various different kind of assaults and aggressions that they have to face, which shouldn't be there. So I think we need to do that, and that would bring back the trust in the society and the doctors, which is kind of withering off now, because what we see is all this pressure of the system eventually comes between the relationship of a patient attendant and the doctor, and that should not happen, and we are seeing that is getting eroded. So something very concrete needs to be done on that as well.
Okay, Dr. Sugandha Gupta, your thoughts on the same as well, ma'am. I just want to understand from you, like I said, that should there at this point in time also be some focus on some sort of a bare minimum checklist that has to now be submitted to all the hospitals if you plan on developing a new hospital in India, or you're revamping a hospital, or some sort of method through which there is a system of checks and balances to ensure that there are basic facilities that are being provided to the doctors. At the end of the day, the incident that happened at the RG Kar Hospital was also because there was absolutely no place for the victim to go and take some rest.
Absolutely. This is a must. We have so many, licenses to fill and forms to fill. The NABH accreditation, there is so much to do when we open a clinic or there's a hospital, but nothing looks at the working environment for the doctors. It is a must that these laws and rules are laid down, that there is a systematic assessment of the same, and that these panels should include doctors as well as lawmakers to ensure that both the inside functioning and the outside legislation and regulation can bring to task if the rules and laws are not followed. Regarding the mental health well-being, it is very, very important that for all the doctors, each of the hospitals, institutes, and organizations, these days in all the corporate organizations, it is mandatory that they have a psychologist or a counselor wherein their own workers and employees can reach out and connect and seek help. Similarly, there should be such an organization in each and every hospital and organization wherein any doctor, howsoever senior or junior they may be able to reach out, convey their grievances, find the adequate support at the right time, wherein then the support can be extended within the doctor community of that organization itself. That is also extremely important. This should include not just the infrastructure, but also the functioning interdepartment-wise, and also should include the doctors, the senior most doctors, to be motivated to maintain a congenial, cordial, motivating work environment with all due respects to the medical profession.
Okay, I'll leave the last word with Dr. P.S.V. Rao. Dr. Rao, on the topic of the role of then some of the senior doctors who have also been through the churn themselves, I just want to understand from you, sir, is it something that the senior doctors along with the senior management need to look at in terms of, there is sometimes a belief that, okay, certain types of pressures help mold a person and help mold a professional to really progress. Because for example, doctors, the sort of profession that it is, you're constantly under stress. And in those stressful situations, you're expected to make literally life and death decisions for patients. But within that, Dr. Rao, does there now need to be some sort of an evaluation of what really is good stress or what really is necessary stress versus the sort of stress that is sometimes inflicted by generations above us because they believe that this is what we went through and therefore this is what the next generation also needs to go through? How do we make the distinction between the two?
Devika, we seniors, see, I have been in the surgery department for 46 years, and the surgery department now is very different from the surgery department 46 years ago. So we have been evolving. We have been evolving to remain relevant. And we didn't have women in the surgery department. Women were all in the OBG department. But now we have women, we understand, and we have evolved. We have evolved to the new equipment. For me, 46 years ago was like bullock cart age in surgery department. It is now like space age. We have had to keep learning and keep evolving. But most of these government hospitals buildings are more than 100 years ago, 100 years old. Their sewage lines haven't been changed. Their bathrooms haven't been sorted out. Their basic necessities have been sorted out. If there is rain, there is seepage there. How can you maintain hygiene in such horrible conditions? And consider the overloading. Way back 40 years ago, we had 6 months waiting list. Now you can just imagine it, just because the corporate hospitals have come up, that certain amount of load has shifted off. But still, the load is tremendous. And you expect one doctor to see 100 patients, it will be, or 50 patients. How is it humanly possible? And we are very sympathetic to this. The problem is, neither the administration nor the politicians are least interested in sorting out this problem. It is sad that finally the Supreme Court has to step into this. The court, it is not actually this should be sorted out by the political leaders and who are unnecessarily interfering in it, and many of them are very corrupt, and they are only interested in siphoning off the money rather than doing anything to get these hospitals buildings sorted out, the equipment sorted out. Why should all this be going on? So in my article, I have mentioned that we need safe buildings. Many of these buildings are dilapidated. We need proper secure entry and exit. We need biometrics to be sure that who the people coming in and going out of the hospitals is. Because you can have, remember, after the 9/11, all hotels had security check on anything which is coming in and going out. We had it briefly. After that, it is all gone.
Yes.
So any terrorist can walk into a hospital and create a terror incident there. And there are, I also said CCTV, and it should be properly monitored. There is no point having a defunct CCTV line somewhere. Then various other things like fire security and various toxic and dangerous things that are chemical which we have to use. These things have to be controlled. Narcotics, fentanyl, these are all things which could be misused. Many of these hospitals, what happens is the criminals take over. They then push the doctors, threaten the doctors, and do whatever they feel like.
Okay.
There are drug rackets going on. There are various other rackets going on in many of these hospitals.
Yes.
We need safety from this. We are being honest. We are service-minded. That is why we have joined this noble profession. And we can't see this happening.
Absolutely.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.